The judge granted Young Thug's motion to suppress evidence in the YSL RICO case. Let's talk about the details. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about a major victory for Young Thug and his legal team. His attorneys had filed a motion to suppress evidence, and basically a motion to suppress is when you're asking the judge to throw out evidence because the police illegally obtained that evidence in violation of one's constitutional rights. So Young Thug's legal team had argued that back in 2015, the police illegally searched his home. And so the items in question, there were varying reports. Some have multiple cell phones, computers, and weed, and then other reports had indicated that it was just one cell phone, one computer, and weed. So I'm not sure which one is correct, but it was at least one cell phone, a computer, and some weed. So this leads to a discussion about the Fourth Amendment, and basically the Fourth Amendment protects us from unreasonable searches and seizures. And so under the Fourth Amendment, the police have to have a warrant. They can't just, go up in your house or your car or your business and conduct a search. They have to have a warrant. Now, there are exceptions to the warrant requirement, but generally speaking, the police need a warrant to search. And so, word to the wise, listen, one of those exceptions to the warrant requirement is consent. So if we know that generally speaking, police need a warrant, if you give them consent to search, they no longer need a warrant. So, if the police roll up to your house and they say, hey, Bill, do you mind if we search your home? And you say, yeah, sure, come right in and search my home, then they no longer need a warrant. Otherwise, if you said no, then they'd have to go through the proper channels of getting a warrant. So, if you don't want police searching your stuff, then assert your rights, let them know you cannot enter my house, you cannot search my house without a warrant. So let's talk a little bit about how police actually go about getting search warrants. So let's use an example saying the police are conducting an investigation in a drug case and they have this guy, Johnny. Johnny's the major target of their investigation. So the police want to actually have an opportunity to search Johnny's home because they've learned that Johnny has a lot of drugs, a lot of money, and it's stashed in his house. And they know if they go into his house, they'll be able to find this evidence of criminal activity and arrest him and have him charged with multiple crimes. But the police cannot just run up to Johnny's house, bust the door down, and search for the drugs and the money because this would be a violation of Johnny's Fourth Amendment rights. And if they went about doing this, any of the evidence that was illegally obtained, if Johnny has a solid lawyer, that lawyer is going to file the same type of motion that Young Thug's lawyer filed in this case, and he's going to get the money and the drugs thrown out, and that's likely going to lead to a dismissal of the charges. So the police would have to get a warrant first. And so the way they go about doing it is they present evidence to a judge in order to get the warrant. What will usually happen is one of the detectives will draft what's called a declaration or an affidavit, and they're gonna put all the details that demonstrate probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed and that evidence that relates to that crime will be found in the place that's listed as where they want to search. Let's say as part of the investigation, the police end up arresting a guy, Rick, right? So Rick is one of Johnny's boys. Rick was already on probation for selling drugs, and he ends up getting pulled over for a busted taillight, right? So if Rick's on probation and he's on a fourth waiver, if you're on a fourth waiver, that means that you no longer have the same protection that everyone else has in terms of the Fourth Amendment. So the police can pull you over, they see you have a fourth waiver, they can search your car without a warrant. They can search your house without a warrant. They can search your person without a warrant. Rick ends up getting pulled over, he's got a fourth waiver, police search his vehicle, and they find a couple grams of coke. So they're gonna threaten him. So they're gonna say, hey, Rick, man, we know you were already on probation. Looks like you're about to go back to prison. Rick just got out. He's in a relationship with a wonderful girl. She might have waited for him last time, but she said, hey, if you go down again, I'm not waiting around. Rick just had a baby boy and he made a promise to himself, made a promise to his little one that he would never leave him. And so Rick cannot stand the thought of possibly being separated from his baby boy and his girl. And he says, hey, there's no way I'm going back to prison. So he offers to give up information. And the police are interested because they've been interested in Johnny for a long time. And so Rick finally cuts a deal with the police saying, hey, we're not going to violate you. We're not going to have you facing new charges based on this coke if you work with us. And so he agrees to provide information. So Rick tells the police that Johnny is his plug, right? So he says Johnny's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of drugs. He keeps it all in a basement compartment, and Rick knows this because they've engaged in numerous transactions over the last few months, and he has personally, with his own eyes, seen Johnny pull out money and drugs from this compartment. So the detective is going to put all this information in the declaration and get it to the judge. The judge reviews the declaration and he says, hey, you know, I believe that there's probable cause to believe that there have been crimes committed by Johnny, so distribution of cocaine and possession of cocaine for sale, and there's probable cause to believe that there's going to be money and drugs in this basement compartment. And so the judge is going to sign off the warrant, and that is what is going to allow the police to conduct a search of Johnny's home. This is the proper way to go about the process of getting a warrant, but unfortunately, there are police who are shady, who cut corners, who refuse to go about it the right way, and they'll search a home, they'll search a house, they'll search a person without having the proper documentation. And this is where it's very important to have solid legal counsel to be able to review the evidence, review it with the client, and the client can tell them, hey, they never showed me a warrant. I didn't give them consent to search my home. In fact, I told them you cannot search my home, and they searched it anyway, and that's when they found my stash. If that's the case, then the client can work with their lawyer to do this, which would be file a motion to suppress to get that evidence thrown out. In Young Thug's case, the defense attorneys argued that either the police did not have a warrant at all, or the warrant that they had was not valid when they searched the home, and as such, that search was in violation of Young Thug's Fourth Amendment rights. Sometimes the police make mistakes, so they may just intentionally cut corners in violation of somebody's rights, and sometimes they just make an honest mistake, but either way, the law is the law. They have to have a warrant in order to search a person's home, or one of the exceptions must apply. In this case, the phone that was seized was very important because, you know, a lot of times when people are doing dirt and people are committing crimes, there's gonna be evidence of that criminal activity in their cell phones. For example, if we're talking about a drug dealer, oftentimes there's gonna be evidence, it's gonna be, you know, probably coded language of orders and delivery and costs and all that kind of stuff. So in this case, the police ended up extracting evidence of other criminal activity from Young Thug's phone. Ultimately, the judge sided with the defense. They granted the motion, suppressing the evidence, and that meant that the DAs could not use any of the evidence that was illegally obtained. And even further, there's a doctrine called fruit of the poisonous tree. So if there's evidence that's illegally obtained and that leads to the discovery of further evidence, then that evidence gets thrown out too because it's considered to be fruit of the poisonous tree. If the police would have been able to discover that information or that evidence independent of the illegally obtained evidence, the DAs can make the argument that that should not be thrown out, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. So the evidence that was illegally obtained, the cell phone, the computer, the weed, that was thrown out and cannot be used against Young Thug in this trial. Anytime you can get a motion to suppress granted, that is a solid victory. It's not only a victory for the client himself, but just for society on a whole. We as defense attorneys are that element of checks and balances to hold the police, to hold prosecutors to the fire and make sure that they're doing the right thing and that they're going about getting evidence in the right way. So again, solid victory for Young Thug and his legal team, but realistically, even without the cell phone and the evidence obtained from it, the DA has numerous overt acts and evidence of those acts in furtherance of this conspiracy, and they have a number of YSL members who have been cooperating for a long time, and recently YSL members who had taken plea deals and have agreed to testify in the case against Young Thug. So it's just not looking good for Jeffery Williams, but trial's coming up soon and we'll see what happens. So if you got something out of this, please show me some love and hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.